"Oh my God, he's drowning. Somebody please, somebody help." Maya's voice broke as it echoed along the deserted Detroit riverbank, her small frame sprinting toward the churning water. Her shoes, torn and soaked, skidded across the mud. She could barely see the man between the waves, but his flailing arms and desperate cries made it clear he was dying. She dropped her backpack, ignoring the sharp rocks that tore at her soles. There was no time. No one else was coming. She splashed into the icy water, the cold wrapping around her legs like chains, biting deep into her bones. "Hold on!" she screamed, even though he was too far gone to answer. The current slammed into her, knocking her sideways. A jagged branch caught her thigh, ripping through her jeans and skin. Pain shot up her leg, but she grit her teeth and kept moving. She was bleeding. She didn't care. He went under. "No, no," she cried, diving forward. Her arms plunged into the dark water. She grasped wildly mud, weeds, nothing, and then fabric. A sleeve. She grabbed tight and pulled with everything her trembling muscles had. His body rose, his head lolled back, lips blue, eyes rolled up. Come on, don't die," Maya muttered through chattering teeth. She hooked her arm under his and dragged him, inch by inch, through the slush and river weeds. Her wounded leg throbbed, hot blood mixing with the freezing water. She stumbled, nearly falling, but kept going. They reached the shore. She collapsed beside him, panting, soaked, and shaking. The man wasn't breathing. "No, no, no, no," she whispered, kneeling over him. She placed her hands on his chest like she'd seen on a video once, pushed, counted. Nothing. She tilted his chin, pinched his nose, breathed into his mouth. His chest rose slightly. She coughed, wretched, tasted river on her tongue, but kept going. "Breathe," she sobbed. "Breathe." Suddenly, he jerked. Water burst from his mouth as he coughed violently, turning to his side. He gasped, eyes wide, limbs flailing. Maya dropped back onto the wet ground, shaking in relief. Her vision swam, her leg burned. She pressed her palm against the bleeding gash, wincing. The man turned toward her. Where am I?" "You're safe," she panted. "You're okay." She tried to smile, but her lips trembled too hard. Then, footsteps. Heavy, urgent, angry. "What the hell is going on here?" A woman's voice sliced through the air. Maya turned to see a tall, sharply dressed woman running toward them from a silver SUV parked up the embankment. Her heels dug into the dirt, her pearl necklace bouncing with each step. "Tom? Oh my God, Tom!" The man moaned weakly. The woman dropped to her knees beside him, cradling his wet head. Then she turned eyes wild and looked at Maya. "What did you do to him?" I saved him," Maya stammered. "He was drowning. I pulled him out." "Saved him?" the woman barked. "Look at you. Look at your filthy hands. You think I'm stupid?" Maya tried to step back but stumbled. Her injured leg gave out. "I didn't hurt him," she said, voice small. "Please, he fell in. A sharp crack rang out. The woman slapped her. Maya gasped, stumbling back. "You little thief. Did you push him in? Try to rob him? You disgusting street rat." "I didn't," Maya cried. Her cheek stung, her breath caught. "I swear. I pulled him out. He wasn't breathing." The woman advanced, fury in her eyes. "You think I'm going to let someone like you touch my husband and get away with it?" Another step, another shout. Maya's ears rang. Above them, a dry snap echoed from the trees. A large branch, weakened and brittle, cracked overhead. Maya looked up. Time slowed. The branch fell, straight toward the woman. "Look out," Maya lunged. She shoved the woman aside just as the branch crashed down. The two of them tumbled to the ground. The woman landed hard, cursing. Maya landed on her already injured leg and screamed in pain. The torn flesh opened further. She rolled onto her side, clutching her thigh, breathing in ragged sobs. The woman stared at the fallen branch inches from where she'd stood. Then at Maya. Their eyes locked hers wide with disbelief. Maya's glazed with pain. "I told you," Maya whispered through clenched teeth. "I was trying to help." Silence. Wind rustled the leaves. The man Tom groaned from the ground. The woman looked at him, then back at Maya, who lay crumpled, bleeding. and soaked on the cold, wet ground. Something in her face shifted. Slightly. The anger faltered. Not entirely, but enough. I didn't see, she murmured. Maya didn't answer. Her head fell back against the dirt. Her body trembled. Then Tom's voice, hoarse and dry. She saved me. The woman turned. What? He coughed. She saved me. His eyes met hers, then drifted back to Maya, the girl who had nothing and gave everything. The wind quieted, and somewhere, beneath it all, the world began to change. If you feel for Maya, hit like and drop a comment with where you're watching from. You might find someone near you watching this too. The pain in Maya's leg was dull and deep, like something alive burrowed under her skin, throbbing with every heartbeat. Blood trickled slowly through her torn jeans, soaking into the mud beneath her. Her breath came in short, ragged bursts as she lay sprawled beside the man she'd just saved, no longer a stranger, but no one she truly knew. Above her, the woman stood still now, her eyes narrowed but confused. The fury that had fueled her earlier sharp, venomous was suddenly unfocused. It was clear she wasn't used to being proven wrong, especially not by someone like Maya. Someone dirty, poor, alone. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was that Maya's whole body was trembling. Her lips had turned pale. Her hands were freezing. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was draining from her like the warmth from her skin. Tom, the man, the one she had pulled from the river, who had coughed water back into the world like a second birth, was trying to sit up. He groaned, one arm buckling beneath him. The woman rushed back to his side. Tom, you shouldn't move. Let me just stay still. He winced. I'm fine. Just dizzy. She hurt you. That girl. No, he said, sharper this time. She saved me. The woman hesitated. You're sure? Tom nodded, slowly, like it cost him. She dragged me out. Did CPR. I'd be dead if not for her. The woman looked back at Maya, who was still on the ground, one arm cradling her injured leg, the other trying to support her torso. Mud streaked her face, but her eyes were sharp despite the pain. Watching, waiting. Tom's gaze followed his wife's. He took in the torn jeans, the blood, the way Maya bit her lip to keep from crying. She's hurt, he murmured. His wife pursed her lips, but said nothing. I'll be fine, Maya whispered, not looking at either of them. No, Tom said, trying to rise. No, you won't. We need to get her help, the woman protested. Tom, you're still wet and weak and… She's bleeding, he snapped. Do you want me to ignore that too? That shut her up. Tom turned to Maya again, softer now. Can you stand? Maya nodded, though she couldn't. When she tried, her leg buckled again and she cried out, barely catching herself on a nearby tree root. The cry wasn't loud, but it was raw, half pride, half pain. Tom reached out a hand. Maya flinched. I'm not gonna hurt you, he said gently. She looked at the woman, then at him. Slowly, shakily, she reached back. His hand was warm, firm. He helped her sit upright. But when she tried to stand, she crumpled again. Her hands dug into the dirt, frustrated, humiliated. Tom looked at his wife. Call someone. An ambulance. Now. She hesitated, lips tight. Are you sure? Yes. Still reluctant, she pulled a phone from her designer purse and stepped a few paces away to call. Maya wiped her nose on her sleeve. Sorry. For what? Tom asked. For being in the way. I didn't mean to push her. The branch. I know, he said. You saved both of us. Maya's face twisted. No one had ever said that to her, not with that much honesty in their voice. A long silence stretched between them, the kind that wasn't awkward, just full of everything unspoken. After a while, Tom asked, What's your name? Maya. Maya, he repeated, trying it out like a secret. That's a strong name. She shrugged. It's just a name. No, he said. It's more than that now. She didn't know what he meant. Not yet, but something in his voice made her want to believe it. His wife returned, heels squelching in the mud. They're sending someone. 10 minutes. Tom nodded. They waited in the chill. The air was quiet. A dog barked faintly in the distance. The river murmured, as if still remembering the moment it almost took him. Tom shifted beside Maya. Where do you live? Nowhere. Under the bridge, mostly. He frowned. Alone? She nodded. That's not right. Maya didn't respond. She'd heard that line before from teachers, from caseworkers, people who said it with pity, not action. But this time, something about the way he said it felt different, more like a vow. Your leg needs stitches, he said after a moment. She gave him a sideways look. You a doctor? He smiled faintly. No. But I've been hurt enough to recognize the signs. She almost smiled back, but the pain flared again and pushed it away. Why were you even near the river? He asked. I come here sometimes, she said. It's quiet. Feels like it listens. And Tom looked at the water. Funny. That's why I came too. She glanced at him uncertain. You came here on purpose? He nodded. Needed to get away. From what? He hesitated. Then, noise, pressure, expectations. Maya tilted her head. That doesn't sound like something rich people worry about. He chuckled, low and tired. You'd be surprised. The sound of sirens grew closer, faint but rising. Maya sighed. Guess that's my cue. Tom looked at her. No. That's your beginning. No. And though she didn't know what he meant, again it stuck in her chest like a spark waiting for kindling. The ambulance pulled up to the gravel edge of the park. 2 paramedics ran toward them with kits and blankets. Tom didn't let go of Maya's hand. The ambulance lights strobed faintly across the trees, flashing red and white through the river mist. The paramedics moved quickly, too quickly for Maya's comfort as they reached her and Tom. One crouched beside her with a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. We've got you, he said, reaching for her leg. Just hold still. Maya winced as cold hands pressed around the torn fabric and then parted it to inspect the gash. Blood had dried around the wound, but it reopened slightly under pressure, seeping bright red again. She clenched her jaw to keep from crying out. Deep, but not too wide, the medic muttered. She'll need stitches for sure. Din. She needs more than that, Tom added, still seated beside her, his own body wrapped in an emergency blanket, his voice stronger than before. The second medic turned to him. Sir, we'll take you in too. You're soaked through and ice cold. You could be hypothermic. I'm not going anywhere without her, Tom said, motioning toward Maya. Maya blinked at him, caught between disbelief and something warmer, more unfamiliar. Protocol says, the medic started. I know protocol, Tom interrupted, his voice calm but absolute. But I also know rights. And I'm telling you, I'm staying with the girl who saved my life. The medics looked at each other and then nodded. All right, let's get you both up and in. One of them gently lifted Maya's arm and helped her onto a stretcher. The second medic wrapped her in thermal foil, careful to avoid pressing against her injured leg. Her body, exhausted and numb, gave in to their movements. She wanted to resist, wanted to say, I can walk. But the truth was, she couldn't. As they wheeled her up the incline toward the ambulance, Maya caught a glimpse of the woman again, Tom's wife. She stood at a distance, arms crossed tight across her chest, her expression unreadable. Not angry now, but not apologetic either. When their eyes met, Maya didn't flinch. She held her gaze, and for a brief moment, the woman looked away first. In the ambulance, Tom was already seated, rubbing his hands together near the heater vent. His skin was still pale, his hair damp and sticking to his forehead, but there was life in his eyes now, and when Maya was rolled in beside him, he gave her a nod. You holding up? He asked. Maya nodded slowly. Guess I've had worse. He smiled faintly. You've got grit. I've got nowhere to be, she said with a shrug. The medic working on her raised a brow. Any emergency contacts? Parents? Guardians? Maya hesitated. No. The man scribbled something on his chart and didn't press further. But Tom did. No one at all? He asked, quieter now. No one who'd care, she said, then added, almost like an afterthought. Used to be my mom, but she died when I was 9. I'm sorry, he said. She looked at him, and for once, didn't look away. Yeah. Me too. Though, the ride continued in silence for a minute, filled only by the hum of the engine and the rustling of supplies. Tom rubbed his forehead. What were you doing there? She asked. At the river. He paused, thinking, regretting things, avoiding a meeting I didn't want to go to. You almost died. I know. Maya turned her face toward the window, watching the blurred city lights streak past. I didn't think you were gonna make it. Tom looked at her, studied the cuts on her face, the mud on her hands, the rip in her jeans. You should have walked away, he said quietly, but you didn't. Maya's jaw tightened. People walk away from me all the time. I guess I didn't want to be like them. That sentence, spoken plainly, hit Tom harder than any branch or current ever could. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low. I don't know who you are, Maya, but I owe you everything. She gave a half smile. Most people don't remember me 10 minutes after they see me. Well, I will. Sure, she muttered, not believing it, not fully. But his tone planted a seed, a flicker. The ambulance turned sharply, pulling into a private hospital. Staff rushed to the back doors. Tom motioned toward Maya. She goes in first, her leg. I'm fine, she tried to argue. He turned to her. Maya, you're not fine. You saved me and got hurt doing it. Let someone help you now. No. She frowned but nodded slightly. Too tired to argue more. Inside, they were separated. Nurses whisked Maya into a treatment room. The doctor numbed her leg and began stitching, while a nurse cleaned her cuts, bandaged her arm, and gently wiped the dried blood from her cheek. The sting of antiseptic was nothing compared to what she'd already felt that day. An hour later, she was placed in a recovery room, a quiet space with one window and a thin hospital blanket that, to her, felt like the softest thing she'd touched in years. She stared at the ceiling, still unsure if this was real. Then the door creaked open. Tom stepped in, now in dry clothes, gray slacks, a navy sweater that looked expensive but worn. You okay? He asked. She nodded. It doesn't even hurt that much now. He stepped closer. My wife told me what happened with the branch. She thought. He stopped. She's not used to being wrong. She hit me, Maya said bluntly. Thought I was hurting you. Tom sighed. I know. She panicked. And then, she judged. I'm not excusing it. Maya didn't reply. Her face was unreadable. She won't touch you again, Tom said quietly. Maya looked at him then, really looked. Why are you still here? Tom's answer came without hesitation. Because I've spent most of my life surrounded by people who want something from me. You didn't. I didn't even know who you were. Exactly. Silence. Then Tom asked, what would you say if I told you I didn't want this to be the end of our story? Maya blinked. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not leaving you to go back to a bridge and pretend like none of this happened. Her throat tightened. Her heart didn't know what to do with hope. It kicked hard, fast, frightened. No one's ever said that to me before. Tom gave a soft smile. Then I guess I'll be the first. Maya didn't sleep that night. Even though the bed was soft, too soft, almost, and the blanket warm, her mind refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the river again. The way it pulled at her, the man's lifeless weight, the woman's slap. And then, Tom's voice. She turned onto her side, careful not to disturb her bandaged leg, and stared out the hospital window. Dawn was creeping into the sky, painting it with brushstrokes of pale gold and ash gray. Somewhere down below, the city was waking up. People would be starting their cars, drinking their coffee, walking their dogs. She wondered if they knew a girl like her existed, let alone saved someone like Thomas Ward. The door clicked open. Maya tensed instinctively, her fingers tightening around the blanket. But it was him. Tom stepped in slowly, carrying 2 cups of something hot. He looked different now, still older, still silver-haired, but calmer. Less like a man who'd almost drowned and more like someone freshly rewound, like something heavy had lifted from his chest. Morning, he said. Didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't sleeping, Maya replied, sitting up a little. He handed her a cup. Hot chocolate. The scent hit her first, sweet, warm, unreal. She blinked, unsure whether to trust it. I figured coffee's not your thing, he said. I've never had either, she muttered. Tom chuckled softly and sat in the chair by her bed. Then let's start with the one that tastes like dessert. Maya lifted the cup carefully. It burned her fingers through the paper, but she didn't mind. She took a small sip. Her eyes widened. That good? He asked, smirking. She nodded. Like warm candy. He sipped his own coffee and looked around the room. They're discharging me in a few hours. Maya looked down. Guess you'll be heading back to wherever people like you go. There was no sarcasm in her voice, just quiet expectation, the kind forged by years of temporary kindnesses that always expired. Tom didn't answer right away. He took another sip. Then, what if I said I didn't want to go alone? Maya blinked. Huh? I've been thinking, he continued, his voice softer. You saved me. You risked everything, got hurt, and you didn't even know who I was. You didn't ask for anything. Zero. I didn't do it for a reward, she said quickly. I know that, which is exactly why I want to offer you one. Maya frowned. What kind of reward? Not money, Tom said. Not a check or a one-time thing. I'm talking about something real. A place to live. A chance to rest. Go to school. Be a kid again. Maya stared at him, the cup trembling slightly in her hands. You don't even know me. I know enough. She shook her head. You're just feeling guilty. Or grateful. It'll pass. No. Tom leaned forward. I've built companies, Maya. Hired people. Fired people. Trusted people who let me down. And yet in one moment out there, in the freezing water, a stranger cared more about me than half the people on my payroll ever have. Maya swallowed hard. I meant it, he said. When I told you, this doesn't have to be the end of our story. Her lip twitched. What would your wife say? He sighed. She's not thrilled, but she also wasn't the one drowning. The silence stretched. I don't know how to do any of that, Maya said quietly. Do what? Be normal. Sleep in a bed every night. Trust people. Tom smiled gently. That makes two of us. They sat in silence again, but this time it was comfortable, familiar. I haven't gone to school since last year, she murmured. They said I had attitude. Do you? Only when I'm hungry. He chuckled. She looked up at him again, her voice small. What would I call you? He blinked. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I can't just call you guy who almost died. He grinned. You could. Has a certain ring to it. Maya smiled despite herself. Then, after a pause, Tom's okay? Tom's perfect. She sipped more hot chocolate. Her hands had stopped shaking. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. A card, black, sleek, with a silver logo pressed onto the front. She took it cautiously. What is it? Just a key, he said. To something better. I'm not ready, she whispered. You don't have to be. Just willing. Her eyes met his again, and this time, she didn't look away. I'm willing, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Tom nodded. Then let's start with that. And in that quiet hospital room, with the smell of cocoa in the air and sunlight breaking through the blinds, something shifted. Not just between them, but within them. The car ride was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. The seats were soft like clouds, the air smelled faintly of cedar and leather, and there was classical music playing soft, string-heavy, the kind of sound that felt like it belonged in a museum. She sat stiffly in the back seat of the black SUV, dressed in clean hospital clothes and wrapped in a blanket the nurse had insisted she keep. Tom sat beside her, still quiet, still watching. He wasn't staring, just glancing over now and then, as if making sure she didn't vanish, like part of him wasn't convinced she was real. The driver, a man named Carl, was polite but silent. Maya couldn't help but study the back of his head and the expensive watch on his wrist. Everything about this felt strange. Not bad, just unreal, as if she'd fallen asleep on the riverbank and was still dreaming. Where are we going? She asked finally. To my house, Tom replied. She stared at him. You have a house? He smiled gently. Most people do. Yeah, but yours has, like, rooms, doors, maybe a fridge that hums when it's full? He chuckled. Yes, all of the above. She looked out the window again. The city passed by gray buildings, neon signs, a row of people waiting outside a soup kitchen. Her chest tightened. I used to stand in that line, she muttered. Tom didn't reply right away. Then, for how long? A year, maybe more. You were what, 12? 11 when I got kicked out of my last group home. They said I fought too much. Did you? She hesitated. Once, a boy kept calling me Roach. Said I smelled like the street. Tom's knuckles tensed slightly on his knee. What happened? I broke his nose. A beat of silence. Then Tom said, "Good." Maya blinked. "You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to be 11 and homeless either." She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The car grew quiet again, the violins from the radio filling the silence. After a while, Tom asked, "What about before that? Before foster care?" Maya looked down at her hands. They were clean now, bandaged, but clean. "My mom was a teacher, English. She used to read out loud even when it wasn't story time. Said stories made people less afraid. She sounds kind." She was. Until she got sick. Tom didn't ask with what. He didn't have to. Maya's voice had changed. Lower. Heavier. "She tried to keep me out of the system. Said she had plans. But the cancer moved too fast. And when she was gone, the plans went with her." She stared out the window again. "I remember her hands. Always warm. Always moving." Tom looked at her, eyes soft. "She'd be proud of you." Maya shrugged. "You didn't know her. I didn't have to. I can see what she left behind." That made something ache in her chest. Not the kind of ache that made you run, the kind that made you want to stay still. Let it be felt. They crossed into a quieter part of the city. The buildings grew farther apart, the sidewalks cleaner, the lawns greener. Eventually, the car turned down a tree-lined street with stone walls and iron gates. "This is it," Tom said softly. Maya leaned forward, watching as the gate opened automatically and the car rolled through. The house wasn't a house. It was a mansion, brick and glass, big windows, a front yard that looked like a park. She didn't say anything, but her mouth parted slightly. "You live here?" she whispered. Tom smiled. "It's just a house." "No, it's a castle." Carl parked in front. A housekeeper opened the door from the inside. Tom stepped out first, then turned to offer Maya a hand. She stared at it for a moment before taking it. Inside, the air was warm and smelled like something baked vanilla. Cinnamon. The floors were dark wood. The walls high, hung with paintings. There were no plastic chairs. No locked cabinets. No silence filled with fear. "Welcome home," Tom said. Maya froze. Home. No one had said that word to her in years. Her voice cracked. "I don't know if I can do this." Tom knelt beside her. "Maya, you saved my life. But more than that, you reminded me why it was worth saving. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to let yourself breathe." She blinked fast, trying to chase the tears away. "You're really not gonna send me away?" "No," he said firmly. "You're not invisible here." And for the first time in a long, long time, Maya believed him. Dinner was nothing like the meals Maya remembered from the shelters. Those came on dented trays, lukewarm, with the smell of bleach in the air. This was something else entirely. She sat stiffly at one end of a long oak dining table in a room that could have fit her entire childhood apartment. A chandelier sparkled overhead, flickering off silverware so polished it reflected her uncertain face. A housekeeper named Loretta had brought out steaming plates, baked chicken, roasted vegetables, soft rolls, and mashed potatoes so fluffy they didn't seem real. Tom sat at the opposite end of the table not out of formality, but because Maya had chosen the far chair when she entered the room. It made her feel smaller, less in the way. He didn't fight her on it. The first few bites felt like betrayal. Every taste reminded her of how long she'd gone without this kind of warmth, how deeply she'd taught herself not to want things that could be taken away. She kept her eyes down, fork steady, chewing slowly as if the food might vanish if she moved too fast. "You don't have to finish it all," Tom said gently, watching her. She paused mid-bite. "It's just good." He smiled. "Glad to hear that. Loretta's been with me for 20 years. She's a better cook than I ever deserved." "No." Maya took another bite of the potatoes. "Taste like Sundays." Tom blinked. "What do Sundays taste like?" "Warm," she said simply. They ate in silence for a while after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet, like two people listening to a conversation neither needed to speak aloud. Eventually, Maya looked up. "Why didn't you tell me who you were right away?" Tom took a sip of water before answering. "I didn't want it to matter." "It does though," she said. "You're rich. Important. You're in the paper." He nodded. "And none of that helped me when I was drowning." She watched him for a moment. You didn't seem like someone who needed saving. No one does. Until they do. Maya picked at the corner of her bread roll. Most people wouldn't believe me if I said I saved someone like you. I know. They'd think I was trying to get something. I know that too. She looked at him again. Why don't you? Tul met her eyes. Because you already had a chance to take something and didn't. Maya didn't respond. The truth of that sat between them, unchallenged. Outside the tall windows, the sky had turned a deep navy blue. The trees rustled gently, leaves brushing glass. For a moment, it reminded her of the nights by the river, wind, and silence, and the sound of things moving that no one saw. Tom stood slowly. Want to see something? Maya looked uncertain but nodded. He led her down a hallway lined with photographs, some framed in gold, others simple black wood. She paused in front of one, a woman with warm eyes and a smile that reached deep. Her hair was swept back, her hand on a young boy's shoulder. My wife, Tom said, his voice quieter now. Maya didn't ask what had happened. She could tell by the sadness in his voice that the loss was old but never distant. She was the one who made this place feel like more than just a big house. I like her smile, Maya said. Looks real. Tom nodded, staring at the photo longer than he needed to. He turned and led her to a room near the back of the house. The door creaked open into a cozy space, bookshelves, a fireplace, and 2 armchairs facing the window. One of the chairs had a knitted throw blanket on the arm, as if someone had just stepped away. This was her reading room, he said. She called it the quiet corner. Maya stepped inside slowly, almost reverently. She trailed her fingers along the shelf closest to the door. Do you read? He asked. Used to, she said, before things got loud. Tom walked to the bookshelf and pulled down a slim, faded book. The cover showed a boy and a tree. He handed it to her. The Giving Tree. Maya took it, staring down at the familiar drawing. She read this to me once. My mom. Tom sat in one of the chairs. You want to read it again? Maya hesitated, then lowered herself into the second chair and opened to the first page. Her voice was quiet. A little unsure at first, but steady. She read aloud, and Tom listened not just with his ears, but with his heart. He heard the girl who hadn't been read to in years. The girl who had given more than anyone had ever asked. The girl who had become someone's hero, even when no one had ever tried to be hers. By the last page, her voice caught. She closed the book and looked out the window. Tom didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. Eventually, Maya spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you think trees ever get tired of giving? Tom's answer was slow, thoughtful. I think they do, but I also think sometimes they just need someone to sit in their shade for a while. Maya leaned back in the chair, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself rest. Morning filtered through gauzy curtains, painting soft lines of gold across the library walls. Maya woke slowly, curled in the armchair beneath the knitted blanket she hadn't meant to fall asleep under. Her legs still ached, but the throbbing had dulled overnight, replaced by a gentle soreness that reminded her she was safe. Not outside, not under a bridge, not cold and hidden. Safe. Across from her, Tom sat in the other chair, legs crossed, newspaper in hand. He looked up when she stirred, offering a tired but warm smile. You slept through the storm, he said, nodding toward the window. She followed his gaze. Outside, wet leaves clung to the glass, and water dripped from the roof in rhythmic taps. The wind had passed, but the air was still thick with its memory. I didn't hear it, Maya murmured. That's how you know you slept deep. She sat up slowly, pushing the blanket off her lap, suddenly aware of how still everything felt. No yelling, no sirens, no stomping footsteps or clanging metal carts. Just quiet. I guess I forgot what quiet sounds like, she said. Tom folded the paper and set it on the side table. Most people don't appreciate it until they lose it. Maya studied him for a moment, noticing for the first time the fine lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders slumped a little more when he thought no one was looking. She remembered the weight of his body in the water, how lifeless he'd seemed, how close he'd been to disappearing. You don't look like someone who needs saving, she said softly. He looked up, surprised. I've heard that before. Did you believe it? Sometimes, he said. But not that day. She nodded, pulling her knees up into the chair. You still haven't told me, she said after a moment. Told you what? Who you are. Really? Tom sighed. Does it matter? Yes, she said plainly. Not because I care about the name, but because everyone else will. Micah, he looked at her, long and steady, then gave a small nod. My name is Thomas Ward, he said. I built a tech company in the late 90s, sold it, built another, Ward Tech. Maya's brow furrowed. That sounds familiar. It should. It's on half the phones and tablets in this country. Her eyes widened, just slightly. So you're like rich? Tom chuckled. Yeah, I suppose so. She leaned back. Then why were you alone, by the river, dressed like someone who wasn't rich? His smile faded. Because that day, I didn't want to be Thomas Ward. I just wanted to be Tom. A man who could sit quietly without someone needing something from him. She didn't respond right away. Then, and you got me instead. He tilted his head. I got you instead. Sorry to disappoint, she mumbled. He chuckled. You didn't, not even close. A silence settled again, but it was warmer now, softer, less like a wall between them and more like a shared space where words didn't have to fill every corner. You know, Maya said after a while, most people I meet, they ask questions first. What's your story? What'd you do to end up here? What's wrong with you? Tom raised an eyebrow. And what do you say? Whatever makes them leave me alone. He nodded thoughtfully. And me? You didn't ask anything. You just, Saturday. He leaned back in his chair. Maybe I was too tired to interrogate a hero. I'm not a hero, says the girl who jumped into a freezing river for a stranger. She looked down at her hands, still bandaged, still raw from the current and the rocks. You ever feel like you're still underwater? She asked. Tom's face shifted just a little. The kind of shift that said, I know that feeling too well. Every day, he said quietly. They sat there, two people with lives so far apart they shouldn't have even shared a sidewalk. But here they were. In armchairs. In quiet. In something like trust. Maya reached down and picked at a thread on her sleeve. If you're Thomas Ward, doesn't that make your wife? Tom sighed. Cynthia. Yes. She's been protective. Stubborn. Distrustful. She hit me. I know. Maya didn't say anything. Her silence was louder than a scream. She's afraid, Tom said. Of change. Of me getting hurt. Of people taking advantage. Maya scoffed. She thought I was stealing from you. She didn't even listen. I know, he repeated, and I'm not excusing it. Maya's voice turned bitter. I get it. People see someone like me, and they already know the whole story. They don't, Tom said, but they think they do. She looked up. What if you start thinking the same way? He didn't answer immediately. Then you'd remind me who pulled me out of the river. She gave him a crooked half smile. That's a pretty good line. It's not a line, it's a promise. No. For the first time, Maya believed him without needing to, without testing it, without building a backup plan. She leaned back in the chair and exhaled. I still like calling you Tom better. I prefer it, he said. Thomas Ward gets too much mail. She smirked. And attention. Exactly. Maya looked at the window again. The sky was clearing, and sunlight began poking through, catching on the glass and warming the floor. She closed her eyes for a moment. Tom? Yeah? You think it's okay if I stay a little longer? He smiled. I was hoping you would. And that morning, in a quiet corner of a large, lonely house, a girl with no name left behind became the one name a man like Thomas Ward would never forget. The sun had slipped beyond the horizon, leaving behind a soft orange afterglow that bled into violet across the Michigan sky. The garden behind Tom's house stretched wide and quiet, dotted with trees older than Maya's memory could measure. One of them, a massive maple, stood near the edge of the yard, its branches bent like old arms ready to catch dreams. Maya sat beneath it, her injured leg stretched out gently over a folded towel Loretta had brought from inside. The air was cool, crisp with early fall, but not cold enough to chase her back indoors. She liked the silence, not the silence of fear or neglect, but one filled with breath and leaves and space to think. Tom approached from the back patio with 2 mugs in hand. One of them steamed with hot cocoa again. Maya smiled faintly as he handed it to her. "You trying to bribe me?" she asked. "I'm trying to keep you warm," he replied. "But if bribery works, I'll keep that in mind." She took the mug, fingers curling around it gratefully. "This place is quiet." Too quiet sometimes," Tom said, easing himself down beside her on the grass with a grunt, especially after Cynthia moved upstairs. "She doesn't stay here?" Maya asked, keeping her tone casual. "She stays apart," he said carefully. "We've grown used to different spaces." Maya sipped her cocoa, thoughtful. "Is that normal? For people who live together?" "Sometimes. For people who forget how to listen." She tilted her head. "You don't seem like someone who forgets things." Tom let out a soft laugh. "You'd be surprised how many things I've let slip away." The wind stirred the maple's branches above them. One leaf, burnt orange and gold, detached and floated down, landing gently on Maya's lap. She stared at it for a moment, then ran her fingers across its crisp surface. "When I was little," she said, "my mom used to say trees are like old people." Tom raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "They don't talk much, but they've seen everything. And when they drop their leaves, it's just them letting go of things that don't serve them anymore." He was quiet for a beat. Then, softly, "That's beautiful." "She was like that," Maya murmured. "Said things that made the world feel less scary." Tom glanced at her. "You still carry her, you know." Maya looked down. "Sometimes I forget her face, but I remember her voice." "That's the part that matters," he said. "The voice stays with you, long after everything else fades." She was quiet then, sipping from the mug, her breath visible now in tiny clouds. "I didn't think I'd ever get to sit like this again," she whispered. "Not under a tree, not with someone, just still." Tom didn't reply immediately. He let the moment hold. "Me neither," he finally said. She looked at him, surprised. "You? With all this?" He gave a small nod. "Money fills rooms, not hearts." The honesty in that sentence caught her off guard. "I didn't save you for this, you know," she said, motioning around her. "I know. I didn't even know who you were. Just some guy flailing in the water. And you jumped anyway." She turned to face him more fully. "You keep saying I saved your life. Because you did. But, did you want to be saved?" He blinked. That was the question. And she knew it. Tom looked out at the darkening sky, his voice quieter than before. "That morning, I felt heavy, like something inside me had gone gray. Cynthia and I hadn't spoken properly in weeks. My board wanted to push out a new product I didn't believe in. Every room I walked into was a performance." He paused, shoulders rising with a deep inhale. "I didn't plan to die," he said, "but I didn't care if I came back." Maya didn't speak. She didn't move. She just listened. "And then," he said, voice cracking just slightly, "there were your hands. Small, cold, pulling me up like I mattered, like someone still saw me." Maya blinked against the sudden sting in her eyes. "I didn't know I was saving more than a drowning man," she said. Tom turned to her. "You saved a part of me that I thought was already gone." They sat there, beneath the sprawling branches, as the stars blinked into place one by one. No rush. No noise. No need for the world to catch up to them. Eventually, Maya leaned back against the tree, careful of her leg, and let her head rest on the bark. "Is this what normal feels like?" she asked. Tom smiled. "I don't know, but it feels good, doesn't it?" "Yeah," she whispered. Above them, the maple leaves rustled, carrying her mother's voice, maybe in memory, maybe in spirit, saying, "You matter." And for the first time in a long time, Maya believed it. The dream came quietly. Maya was back in the old apartment, the one with the peeling green wallpaper and the leaky sink that never got fixed. It smelled like oatmeal and chalk dust, like it always had when her mother was home early from school. There were books stacked on every available surface, half-read stories with bent corners and pencil marks in the margins. Somewhere, a kettle was whistling, and her mother, tall, gentle, tired in the eyes but bright in the voice, was kneeling beside her. "Okay, baby," she was saying. "One more time. How do you spell it?" Maya, younger and gap-toothed, giggled and traced the letters on the back of a cereal box. "Maya." Her mother beamed. "Perfect. Never forget your name, Maya. It's the one thing no one can take from you." The kettle screamed louder. The room faded. Her mother blurred like fog in a cracked mirror. Maya woke with a gasp. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she blinked into the dark, high-ceilinged bedroom. It took her several seconds to remember where she was, that she wasn't under a bridge or in the back of a shelter cot. She was in Tom's house, in a bed so soft it had frightened her the night before, in clothes that didn't smell like sweat and concrete. The sheets rustled as she sat up, breath still shaky, her fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. The dream had felt too real, too kind, and then it had been ripped away. A soft knock broke the silence. "Maya?" came Tom's voice. She hesitated. "Yeah? Mind if I come in?" She looked around the room, suddenly aware of the clock on the nightstand, 7:14 a.m. "Sure," she said after a pause. Tom stepped inside in house shoes and a fleece sweater. He held 2 mugs, one in each hand. "I thought you might be awake." She forced a small smile. "Guess I don't sleep in." "Bad dream?" Her silence was answer enough. He offered the cocoa without asking this time. She took it with both hands, grateful for the heat. She was in it, she whispered after a while. "My mom." Tom sat in the chair near the window, not too close, just enough. "She was helping me spell my name," Maya said. "She used to say it was something no one could steal." Tom looked down at his mug. "She sounds like someone worth remembering." "I try," Maya said, voice thickening, "but sometimes she fades, and I hate that. She wouldn't blame you for forgetting." "But I do," Maya said quickly, "because forgetting feels like losing her all over again." Tom nodded slowly. "Loss doesn't come all at once, does it? It sneaks in through the cracks, day by day." Maya's eyes welled up, but she didn't let them fall. "What did you lose?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze went out the window, to the garden below, still slick with morning dew. "My son," he said at last. Maya blinked. "I didn't know you had a son." Tom offered a tight, pained smile. "Neither do most people." "Jew." He paused. "His name was Owen. He died when he was 10. Car accident. A week before, I was supposed to take him to the lake house for the first time." Maya's mouth opened slightly. "I'm sorry. I didn't talk about him for years," Tom said. "Not even to Cynthia. We just stopped saying his name, as if that would stop the hurting." "It didn't though, did it?" "No," he said softly. It just made the silence louder. Maya wiped her sleeve across her face. "Do you ever forget him?" Tom looked at her, eyes glassy. "Never, but I do forget the sound of his laugh, and that hurts more than anything." They sat in stillness again, this time wrapped in shared sorrow, shaped differently but cut from the same cloth. After a while, Maya said, "I'm scared I'm gonna mess this up." "This?" "This place. You. Everything. I've never had anything good that lasted." Tom leaned forward slightly. "You didn't mess up saving me. That was different." "Sublime." "How?" "Because that was one moment. This is like being given a future, and that's way scarier." He nodded, not dismissing the fear. "Then let's not try to predict the whole future right now. Let's just start with today." Maya looked at him. "What happens today?" "I was thinking pancakes," he said, a twinkle behind the fatigue in his eyes. "You ever made 'em?" "No." "Then it's time." A reluctant smile cracked her lips. "You're trusting me with a stove? I figure if you can survive a river and Cynthia's right hook, a skillet won't scare you." She snorted softly, and just like that, the weight of the dream, of the fading memory, loosened if only slightly. She climbed out of bed, careful with her leg, and followed him toward the kitchen. As they walked, she glanced at the photograph of his son on the hallway shelf. The boy looked happy, frozen in laughter. She paused for just a second, then reached out and gently tapped the glass. "Hi, Owen," she whispered, and then she kept walking. The scent of pancakes and sizzling butter drifted through the open kitchen, warming the cool morning air inside the house. Maya stood by the island counter, sleeves rolled to her elbows, her hair pulled back into a messy ponytail Loretta had helped tie. The spatula in her hand felt foreign, almost ceremonial, as she watched the batter bubble in the pan like tiny volcanoes. "Flip them when the edges look dry," Tom coached from across the stove, his voice calm, not condescending. Maya squinted. "They still look wet. Wet. Give it another 10 seconds. She nodded, tongue poking slightly from the corner of her mouth, completely focused. When the bubbles formed a ring around the edge, she slid the spatula underneath and flipped. The pancake landed with a soft splat, slightly uneven, but golden brown. She beamed. "Did you see that?" Tom chuckled. "Like a pro. Don't lie to me, old man." "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, raising both hands. They made 6 more pancakes together, stacking them high like a leaning tower of maple syrup potential. Maya sprinkled blueberries on top like she'd seen on a commercial once. They sat at the breakfast nook, bathed in morning light, the house still and calm. For a while, they just ate. No questions, no fear, just food and the soft clink of forks on plates. Then Maya spoke carefully. "You know I still don't understand all this." Tom looked up, curious. "All what?" "You, this house, that car, the way Loretta keeps folding my socks like I'm royalty or something." He wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin. "You mean, you don't understand why a billionaire's living like a man who doesn't want to be noticed?" Maya paused. "Yeah. That... Oh." Tom leaned back, sipping his coffee. His eyes drifted toward the window, where the garden lay glistening under the early Sunday. "Most of my life was about being seen," he said finally. "Articles, awards, gala dinners where people shook my hand and forgot my name 5 minutes later. I thought power meant being everywhere at once. Always visible, always important." "Was it?" "It was exhausting," he said simply. Maya tilted her head. "So you just walked away?" "Eventually, after Owen died. I didn't care if anyone saw me. In fact, I wanted to disappear. I moved out of the city. Built this house far from the glass towers and stock tickers. Cynthia stayed in that world. I didn't." "And Wardtech?" she asked. "That's you?" Tom hesitated. "It was. Not anymore. I stepped down 3 years ago. Gave the reins to a board that mostly wants money." Maya frowned. "And they just let you leave?" "They didn't want a grieving father on the cover of Forbes." She studied him, chewing her last bite slowly. "So, you're like Batman, but sadder." Tom laughed, really laughed this time. It surprised them both. "I've been called many things," he said, "but that's a first." Maya smirked. "Don't worry. I won't tell anyone you're Bruce Wayne." He met her gaze, and the laughter faded, replaced by something heavier. "Maya," he said, "there's something I need to show you." She tensed slightly, unsure why his voice had changed. Tom stood and walked to the side table near the fireplace. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small black box. He returned to the table and set it gently in front of her. She looked down at it. "What is it?" "Open it." With hesitant fingers, she lifted the lid. Inside sat a sleek metal card, matte black with embossed silver letters. "Thomas Ward, private access, executive level, Wardtech." Her breath caught. He watched her carefully. "That card grants me access to every private building, facility, and vault tied to Wardtech worldwide. It's a symbol of who I was." Maya stared at it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I needed you to see the part of me no one else gets to see anymore. The part I stopped sharing." She swallowed hard. "You're telling me you're what? Worth billions?" "Give or take. And you're here, eating pancakes, with me. I'd rather be here than in any boardroom." "Lee?" She set the card down, her hands suddenly cold. "I don't know what to do with that." Tom nodded. "That's okay. I'm not asking for anything. You're not scared I'll try to steal from you now that I know." He smiled. "You already had the chance, remember? I was unconscious, half dead, wallet in my coat." She looked away. "I didn't even think about it." "I know. That's why I trust you." Silence settled between them again. This time it wasn't comfortable. It was thick with implication, with pressure Maya didn't ask for. "I'm not special," she said finally. Tom leaned forward. "You are to me." Tears stung the backs of her eyes. She looked down at her lap, hiding the tremble in her jaw. "I don't know how to live in a world where people think I matter." "Then let me show you," he said, "one day at a time." She took a breath, then another, then nodded once, like a fragile truce between the life she came from and the one unfolding in front of her. Tom reached over and closed the box, but left it on the table. "If you ever want to hold it again," he said softly, "you can." Maya didn't answer, but her fingers lingered near the box, hovering just above the metal surface, not quite touching. Like someone reaching for a future they weren't sure they deserved. Maya had never seen this much marble in one building. The corporate headquarters of WardTech towered over downtown Detroit, with glass panels that reflected the city back at itself and security guards who stood as still as mannequins. She walked beside Tom, her shoulders tense and her palms slightly damp. Every step echoed on the pristine floor like a drumbeat of misplacement. "I feel like I'm in a movie," she muttered under her breath. Tom smiled. "You get used to the silence. It's the whispers you don't." And just as he said it, they began. People stared. First, in passing, quick glances over shoulder bags, flickers of recognition at Tom's face. Then, longer, deeper. Their eyes flicked from Tom to Maya, lingering with a confusion that quickly turned into speculation. A few didn't bother to hide it. "Is that? She's not dressed like. I heard he's bringing someone new into his will." Maya caught every syllable like a slap. Her chin lifted, instinctively, defensively. She'd worn the best clothes Loretta could find for her clean slacks, a blue blouse, shoes that didn't pinch, but she could still feel their judgment slicing through cotton and thread, through every vulnerable memory she thought she'd buried. Tom placed a steady hand on her back. "You okay?" he whispered. "Do I look okay?" "You look strong." She swallowed. "You sure bringing me here was a good idea?" "I didn't bring you here to be shown off," he said, low and firm. "I brought you here because you deserve to see the truth." They stepped into the elevator. Walls of polished chrome reflecting distorted versions of their faces. Maya stood back, arms crossed. As Tom inserted his keycard, the elevator hummed and glided upward without a sound. On the 39th floor, the doors opened into a sunlit conference room. Glass walls, a massive oval table. People in tailored suits were already seated, 6 of them each with a sleek device or notepad in front of them. At the head of the table stood Cynthia. She turned the moment they entered, her face unreadable. Sharp. Controlled. "Tom," she said crisply, "you're late." "I brought a guest," he replied. Cynthia's eyes flicked to Maya. The tension in the room dropped 5 degrees. "This isn't a social call," Cynthia said. "This is a board-level meeting." Tom didn't flinch. "She stays." A man in a gray suit shifted in his seat. Tom, with all due respect. "She stays," he repeated. Maya took the seat furthest from the head of the table, folding into herself, trying to be invisible and failing at it entirely. Cynthia sat at the other end, lips pressed into a tight line. "For the record," Cynthia said to the group, "Miss Brooks has no formal role in this company and should not be privy to confidential information." Tom glanced at Maya. "She's here to hear the part of the story none of you ever told her." Maya frowned. "Told me?" Cynthia inhaled sharply. "You're not going to start this here." "I am," Tom said. "She deserves to know." He turned to Maya. 3 years ago, your mother filed a whistleblower complaint against a WardTech subsidiary about a faulty biometric system being used in juvenile detention centers. It was logging false entries. Some kids got locked down for hours with no way to prove they weren't breaking curfew. Maya froze. "She said she had documentation," Tom continued. "Internal emails, time-stamped footage. Everything." I didn't know that," Maya whispered. Cynthia's voice was cold. "She went to the press. The story didn't make it far. Someone cut the leak." "Your mother lost her job," Tom said, ignoring Cynthia's tone. "And the day after that, the cancer diagnosis came through. She was never able to fight both." The room was silent. Maya couldn't breathe. Her mind spiraled back to the nights her mother came home later and quieter, back to the whispered arguments on the phone. The nights Maya woke to the sound of typing and the light from under the door. "She was trying to protect them," Maya said, voice breaking, "and no one listened." "She tried to protect you," Tom corrected softly. Maya looked up, blinking tears. "What happened to the data?" Cynthia shifted. "There's no record of a full submission." Tom narrowed his eyes. "Because someone buried it. Likely someone in this room." Ugh. A flicker of guilt passed across one board member's face, but it disappeared just as quickly. Tom stood. "This is why I brought her here, not for spectacle, not to stir gossip, but because she deserves to know that her mother wasn't just another number." The silence that followed was thick, trembling. Then Maya spoke. her voice firmer than anyone expected. She died thinking she failed. But she didn't. You did. The room was stunned. Even Cynthia blinked, ever so slightly. Maya stood. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. I'm not here to take your company or your power, she said. I'm here to take back her name. She turned to Tom. Can we go? He nodded once. As they walked toward the elevator, no one stopped them. No one dared. And in the chrome doors, Maya saw her reflection again, this time not distorted, not uncertain. Just her. Whole. Zane. Real. That night, the house felt different. Not colder, not louder, just heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Maya sat alone in the sunroom, a cup of untouched tea cooling in her hands. Outside, the moon hung low and pale over the garden, its light casting soft shadows across the floor. She hadn't spoken much on the drive back. Neither had Tom. There was nothing left to say that didn't feel like ripping something open. Loretta peeked her head in from the hallway. You need anything, sweetheart? Maya shook her head. No, ma'am. Just thinking. The housekeeper nodded, her eyes kind. Well, don't think too hard. It's bad for your blood pressure. A small smile tugged at Maya's lips, but it didn't last. When Loretta left, Maya finally set the cup down. Her legs carried her to the hallway without her fully realizing it, down past the library, past the photo of Owen, and to the locked study door she'd seen Tom enter earlier. It was open now. Tom sat at his desk, sleeves rolled, glasses on, a stack of printed reports and folders spread across the mahogany surface. He didn't look up right away. When he finally did, it was with eyes that had aged a few years since that morning. Can't sleep? He asked. Maya stepped inside. Can you? Tom gave a tired smile. Not really. She walked slowly to the edge of the desk, glancing at the reports. Names, dates, emails, WardTech logos on every page. What are those? She asked quietly. Everything your mother tried to bring to light, he said. I found a backup she stored on a secure drive. She was smart, sent it to a personal cloud the company never accessed. Maya's eyes burned. So it's real. She wasn't paranoid. She wasn't making it up. No, Tom said. She was right. There was a long pause. And now that you know, Maya asked, voice tight, what happens next? Tom leaned back, taking off his glasses and rubbing his face. If I go public with this, stock drops. Shareholders revolt. The board comes after me with teeth. Maya crossed her arms. So, what? We bury it again? No, he said. But I need to do it right. Not just for you. For her. For the kids still trapped in that system. She nodded slowly. And Cynthia? She'll fight it. Let her, Maya said, voice sharper now. She stood by while my mom lost everything. Tom studied her. You want justice, he said. I want her name cleared. I want the people who let this happen to feel what it's like to be powerless. He didn't flinch. And if that means burning the company down? Maya hesitated. Then, if it's built on silence, maybe it should burn. Tom leaned forward, clasping his hands. I've spent decades trying to build something that lasts, but maybe what really lasts is what we're willing to fight for. Maya sat down in the chair across from him. I never got to say goodbye, she whispered. Tom met her eyes. Then let's say something now. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace, simple, silver, with a charm shaped like an open book. Maya gasped softly. I found this in the evidence log from her old desk. She kept it in her drawer, maybe for you, maybe for herself. Tears spilled freely now. She never got to give it to me. She is now, Tom said gently. Maya reached out and took the necklace, her fingers trembling as she clasped it around her neck. A silence past this one sacred, not empty. Tom reached for one of the files and pushed it toward her. There's one more thing, he said. The name of the man who buried the leak. He's still on the board. Maya stared at the page. I want to face him. You will, Tom promised. Not alone. The weight in the room shifted, then less burden, more purpose. Maya stood, the charm cool against her skin, her shoulders squared. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she knew she wouldn't run from it. She would walk straight into the fire if it meant the world finally heard her mother's voice. Loud, clear, and unashamed. WardTech's executive dining floor was normally off limits to visitors. Tinted glass, private entrances, Fresh orchids changed daily, everything whispered exclusivity. Maya didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. But she wasn't here to belong. She was here for answers. She walked beside Tom, her steps slower but certain. Her braid was tight, her eyes sharper than usual. Around her neck hung the silver necklace, her mother's charm, the small open book resting just below her collarbone like armor. Inside the dining hall, the board members sat at a long table draped in white linen. They had been mid-meal when Tom's message came through. Now, they were alert. Some annoyed, some wary, and one James Whitmore visibly nervous. He was the only one who didn't stand when Tom entered. Maya's gaze locked on him immediately. That was the man, the one who'd buried her mother's evidence, the one who signed the internal memo that labeled her a disruption. James adjusted his cufflinks, forcing a smile. Tom, you should have scheduled this properly. Tom didn't sit. This isn't a courtesy visit, James. He motioned to Maya, who stepped forward. This is Maya Brooks, daughter of Camille Brooks. James's jaw tightened. Ah, yes, I remember the case. Do you? Maya asked, voice steady. James leaned back. If I recall, your mother was let go after violating protocol and whistleblowing, Maya interrupted. She reported biometric manipulation in juvenile detention tracking, and you buried it. He chuckled a sharp, dismissive sound. Allegations, no proof. Tom tossed a printed document onto the table. We have her backup drive, with time-stamped files, email chains, security logs. It's all there. The room went still. James didn't pick up the paper. Old data, outdated. That system was decommissioned. Maya took a step closer, her voice rising. Because kids were being locked in solitary based on bad tech. Because of you. James stood now, slow and deliberate. Young lady, I understand this is personal, but don't, she said. Don't call me that. Don't talk down to me. You destroyed her career. She died thinking no one believed her. You don't get to soften that. Other board members looked between them, silent. No one came to James's defense. He glanced around, reading the shift in power. This is a calculated attack. Tom's voice was cold. It's a reckoning. Maya held up her phone and tapped the screen. You're being recorded. For public record, James paled slightly. You can't do that. In this state? Tom cut in. We can, and we are. James's voice dropped an octave, now desperate. Tom, if you leak this, it'll ruin more than just me. Stockholders, partners. Good, Maya said. Maybe they'll think twice next time before silencing someone who speaks up. James stepped forward now, a flicker of menace rising. You think anyone's going to listen to a girl from nowhere? Tom stepped between them. She's not from nowhere. She's from Camille. Silence crashed over the room like thunder. James opened his mouth to respond, then shut it again. Tom turned to the others. I moved to terminate James Whitmore from the board, effective immediately. A pause. Then one by one, hands rose. Majority. It was done. James backed away slowly, a storm of shame and panic brewing in his eyes. He turned without another word and exited the room. His steps loud and fast. Maya watched him go. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like breath. She looked to Tom, who gave her a quiet nod. Then to the others, who avoided her eyes. Cowards, maybe, or just bystanders too long. She didn't care. Outside the boardroom, she finally let the tears fall. Not out of grief this time, but because justice, quiet, overdue, imperfect, had finally stepped into the light. And in that moment, with her mother's name reclaimed, and her own voice no longer shaking, Maya knew. She had just begun. Rain tapped gently against the window pane. Not the kind that made people run for cover, but the kind that lingered soft, steady, cleansing. The kind Maya's mother used to say washed away lies and left only what was true. Maya sat at the edge of the desk in the study, her fingers hovering over a fresh sheet of stationery. The silver charm around her neck was warm against her skin, almost as if it pulsed with her heartbeat. She could hear Tom in the kitchen, murmuring on the phone with a lawyer, likely about press protocols or legal cleanup. But in this moment, it all faded to a hush. In front of her lay a simple sheet of paper, untouched except for 2 words at the top. Dear Mama. She stared at them for a long time. Then, with slow determination, she began to write. I don't know where to begin. Maybe with this. You were right. About everything. The system, the silence, the danger of speaking up. You weren't crazy. You weren't wrong. They tried to erase you, but they couldn't. Not completely. Because I'm still here. Her hand trembled, but she kept going. I found the files you hid. Tom found them, actually. Yeah, Tom Ward. That man you always called. The suit on TV. Turns out, he wasn't just drowning in that river. He was drowning in guilt. In grief. In silence. Just like you. And somehow, we pulled each other out. The pen scratched quietly across the page. They listened to me, Mama. Me. The girl who used to stutter reading out loud. The girl you taught to hold her shoulders up, even when the world looked down. I stood in that room. I said your name. I told them what they did, and they couldn't look away. She paused, swallowed, then continued. They fired the man who buried your voice. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a start, and I swear to you it won't stop here. A tear dropped onto the paper, smearing the ink slightly. I miss you. Every day. But today, I didn't cry because you were gone. I cried because I remembered who you were. Because I felt you in the room when I stood up. Because I wasn't scared. Not this time. She signed it simply. Love, your Maya. She folded the letter slowly, tenderly. Not to send, but to keep. A truth stored, not shared. A conversation she never got to have. Finally whispered into the page. When she stepped into the hallway, Tom was waiting. He looked up from his phone. You all right? Maya nodded. Yeah, I just had to write something down. He didn't ask what. He didn't need to. Instead, he held out a small, weathered envelope. I found this in her cloud folder, dated 2 days before she passed. Maya's breath caught. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, barely a few lines. Maya, if anything happens to me, keep your head high. The world is full of liars, but it's also full of fighters. You're one of them. Don't forget your name. Love, Mama. Maya pressed the paper to her heart. She didn't speak. She didn't need to, because this wasn't the end of the story. This was the moment it became hers. The next morning, Maya stood alone in the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the countertops like honey. She wore a simple black hoodie over jeans, sleeves pushed up, hands dusted in flour. A bowl of biscuit dough sat in front of her, just like the ones she and her mother used to make on quiet Sunday mornings in that cramped old apartment. Only now, the windows were wider. The air was cleaner. And she was no longer alone. Footsteps padded softly behind her. Are we expecting guests? Tom asked, leaning against the doorframe. Nope, Maya replied without looking up. Just figured it's time I started cooking for myself. Tom smiled. Loretta's going to be offended. She'll get over it, Maya said, kneading the dough. He moved closer, watching her work. You've been up since 6? Couldn't sleep. Mind was full. With? Letters. Names. What comes next? Tom nodded. We filed the report with the DOJ. The whistleblower protections will kick in. Your mother's legacy will finally be recognized. Maya gave a quiet, pleased hum. I want to take it further. Tom tilted his head. How far? She turned, wiping her hands on a towel. I want to start something. A program. Scholarships, maybe. Workshops. For girls like me, ones who grew up thinking no one would listen. Tom's smile widened, slow and proud. I'll fund it. Maya raised a brow. You don't even know what I'm calling it. Though, I don't care. If you're leading it, it's worth it. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. You ever gonna stop surprising me? Unlikely, he said. But I think you're getting better at handling it. She grinned. Then, something outside caught her eye, a delivery truck pulling into the driveway. The driver jumped down, walked toward the front door with a large envelope in hand. I didn't order anything, Tom said. Maya moved toward the door. Maybe I did. The driver handed over the envelope and left without a word. Maya opened it carefully, pulling out a sleek brochure and a typed letter on letterhead marked Detroit Public Policy Network. Tom looked over her shoulder. "Dear Miss Brooks," Maya read aloud. "We recently learned of your late mother Camille Brooks's advocacy on behalf of underserved youth. In light of the evidence you've brought forward, and in recognition of her legacy, we'd like to formally invite you to speak at our annual Justice and Reform Conference." She stopped reading. Her hand trembled slightly, but not from fear. Tom looked at her. "You going?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she walked into the study, opened the drawer where she kept her mother's letter, and tucked the invitation inside, next to it. Then she turned back to him. "I'm not going to speak about her." Tom looked confused. "No? I'm going to speak like her," Maya said softly. "So they finally know what it sounds like when a black woman tells the truth and won't be ignored." Tom said nothing. He didn't have to. Maya stepped back into the kitchen, slid the biscuits into the oven, and set the timer. When she turned, he was still watching her. "What?" she asked. "You're different now." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I was always this. I just needed someone to remind me." He nodded. "So what's the name of the program?" Maya didn't hesitate. Cammie's voice. And just like that, the silence that had followed her for years through loss, injustice, fear cracked open, and something stronger came through. A voice. Clear. Steady. Ready to be heard. Outside, the sky was turning bluer, and inside, a door one long shut was finally wide open. 2 weeks later, Maya stood backstage at the Detroit Justice and Reform Conference. She wasn't wearing anything extravagant, just a navy blue blazer Loretta had pressed for her that morning, black slacks, and the silver book charm glinting softly at her collar. Simple, real, and powerful. Beyond the curtain, the muffled sound of applause drifted from the auditorium. The keynote speaker had just finished, and the MC's voice echoed through the speaker system. "And now, please welcome someone whose bravery has reignited a critical conversation across the nation. Founder of the new Camille's Voice initiative, Maya Brooks." The clapping swelled. Maya's heart pounded. Tom had offered to stand backstage with her, but she declined. She needed to do this alone. As she stepped into the light, the applause washed over her, warm, affirming. She reached the podium, adjusted the microphone slightly, and scanned the crowd. Activists, lawyers, students, survivors, and more than a few familiar faces from WardTech's board. Cynthia was there. She didn't smile. Maya didn't need her to. She began, "My name is Maya Brooks, and I didn't come here today to tell you about injustice. You already know it. You live it. You study it. You've felt it in courtrooms, classrooms, and hospital rooms. So instead, I came to talk about silence." She paused. "It's the silence after someone tells the truth and no one listens. It's the silence of closed doors and locked systems. It's the sound of a mother dying with her story still hidden, buried beneath shame and shamefully ignored." The room was still now. Not even phones clicked. My mother, Camille Brooks, wasn't perfect, but she was principled. She worked as a systems analyst for a juvenile corrections program that used biometric check-ins. When she discovered those systems were wrongfully logging kids, some as young as 12 as truant or in violation of curfew, she didn't stay quiet. No. Her hands rested gently on the podium, steady. She reported it internally. Nothing happened. She reported it externally. The story was buried. She was fired. And then came the cancer. By the time she was gone, her name had been erased from everything but a pay stub and a death certificate. She let that sit for a breath. But the truth doesn't die. It just waits for someone brave or angry enough to carry it again. Soft murmurs rose. Heads nodded. "I was angry," she said, "for years. At her. At the world. At myself. I thought she gave up. But she didn't. She left behind evidence. She left behind her voice. And now, I'm here to use mine." Maya glanced toward the crowd and found Tom near the back, arms folded, eyes glassy. "She told me once that your name is something no one can take from you," Maya said, her voice warming. "But they'll try. They'll tell you to sit down, to speak softer, to be grateful for the crumbs." Her chin lifted. "Don't." The scattered applause erupted. She didn't pause for it. "Camille's voice is just beginning. We're launching our first workshop next month, legal training, advocacy resources, Digital literacy for girls in foster care and juvenile systems. We won't wait for someone to come save them. We'll teach them how to speak so powerfully, no one can pretend not to hear. Now the applause was louder, no longer polite, full-throated. Maya smiled just slightly. This isn't just about my mother anymore. It's about yours, your daughters, your students, your clients. It's about every time you told the truth and someone called you a liar. A final pause. And to the people who kept us quiet for so long, I want you to hear this clearly. She leaned closer to the mic. We're done whispering. The auditorium erupted. People stood, clapped. Some cried. And as Maya stepped back from the podium, she felt none of the fear that had once chased her through shelters and bus stations and corporate hallways. She felt light, zen, whole. When she walked off stage, Tom was waiting. You didn't just speak, he said. You landed like thunder. Maya grinned. Good. They walked out into the Detroit sunshine together. A voice behind them whispered to another, that girl's going to change everything. But Maya didn't hear it. She didn't need to, because she knew now. She already had. It was a Sunday, not the heavy kind, where silence weighed too much and the sky threatened rain. No, this one was soft, golden, the kind of morning Camille Brooks used to call God's apology for the weak. The kind that made old folks sit longer with their coffee and younger ones believe again, even if only for a while. At Eastwood Community Park, a small crowd had gathered around a modest unveiling. No press, no podiums, just family, neighbors, and a few city officials. Maya stood near the front, her hands clutching a single white lily, heart thudding gently in her chest. Tom stood just behind her, quiet, respectful. Loretta was there too, wearing her best Sunday hat, eyes misty, hands clasped tight in front of her. The veil was drawn back, and there it stood, a bronze plaque, nestled among native wildflowers, under the shade of a red oak tree. It read, in memory of Camille Brooks, 1,972,020. Mother, advocate, truth-teller. She saw injustice. She spoke anyway. Below the text was an engraving of Camille's profile, kind, resolute, eyes full of purpose. Maya stepped forward. She knelt to place the lily beneath the plaque, her fingers brushing the bronze lightly. I used to think a monument had to be marble, she said quietly to no one in particular. But I think this is better. It's closer to the people, closer to the dirt she fought for. Someone behind her murmured, Amen. As the crowd began to wander off, some staying to chat, some sitting nearby to reflect, Tom joined her side. She'd be proud, he said. Maya didn't answer right away. Then, she'd probably say, it's about time. Tom chuckled. Probably. A young girl, maybe 11 or 12, approached Maya cautiously, holding a dog-eared notebook and a pen. Miss Brooks? She asked. Maya smiled gently. Yes, sweetie? I saw your speech online, the girl stammered. And I started writing this story about a girl who exposes a fake principal. I wanted to ask, how do you know when the truth matters more than what people think of you? Maya knelt, so they were eye level. You know when it keeps you up at night, she said softly. When silence feels heavier than fear, that's when you know. The girl nodded solemnly and handed her the notebook. Can you sign it? Maya did, writing. Keep writing the truth. You already have the voice. No. As the girl skipped away, Maya stood slowly, brushing her hands on her jeans. Tom watched her. You know, he said, this isn't the end of the story. I know, Maya replied. It's the root. He looked curious. Of what? She turned to face him, her eyes bright but grounded. Of something bigger, something she started. I'm just giving it water. Tom nodded. Together, they began walking toward the car parked beneath the sycamores. Not a limousine, just Tom's dusty old hybrid, which Maya now drove half the time. As they buckled in, Maya glanced once more at the plaque in the distance. A monument, but also a mirror. A reminder that even in silence, seeds wait patiently for light. And once they rise, they do not stop growing. The email came on a Tuesday. Maya was sitting at the worn desk in the converted attic office, formerly Tom's storage space, now the official home of Camille's Voice. She had just finished reviewing grant applications for their first pilot program in Flint, Michigan, when the notification pinged on her laptop. She clicked it absent-mindedly at first. Then her breath caught. It was from the Department of Justice. Subject: Whistleblower Acknowledgement and Posthumous Recognition of Camille Brooks. She opened it. Dear Miss Brooks, after extensive review and collaboration with local and federal agencies, we are writing to inform you that Camille Brooks's whistleblower complaint from 2020 has been verified and substantiated. The DOJ and Department of Youth Corrections will issue a formal statement clearing her name of any wrongdoing and publicly recognizing her contribution to justice reform. We will also be implementing immediate corrective measures across all facilities impacted by the biometric misreporting. Camille Brooks will be posthumously awarded the Citizens for Justice Honor, the first of its kind for a non-government employee. A ceremony will be held next month. Thank you for ensuring that her voice was not lost. Sincerely, U.S. Department of Justice. Maya leaned back in the chair. It creaked beneath her, but the sound barely registered. Her eyes welled not with pain this time, but with quiet, overwhelming release. Her mother had been heard. For the first time, officially, the air in the attic was warm, but not stifling. A breeze drifted in through the open skylight, carrying the distant sound of school kids shouting on a nearby playground. Life. Below, she heard Loretta humming in the kitchen, and the clang of a pan probably baking cornbread for their Tuesday potluck. Tom had gone to meet with the city council about a community tech center project. He'd be back before dinner, no doubt carrying some overly expensive cheese for the table. Maya smiled. Everything felt ordinary, but also monumental. She closed the laptop, stood, and walked to the window. Outside, the oak trees rustled with early autumn wind. The garden she'd started weeks ago, her first, was thriving. Tomatoes, basil, peppers. Loretta swore by using coffee grounds in the soil. It worked. Everything was growing. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded scrap of paper. Her mother's letter, the one that had reminded her to hold her head high. She didn't unfold it this time. She just held it. Spoken once, and never forgotten. Her phone buzzed. A message from a local news outlet requesting an interview. Another from a public school board member who wanted Camille's voice in their district. And one from the girl at the park with a photo of her holding up her story, published in her middle school newsletter. The caption read, "Thanks to Maya Brooks, I found my voice." Maya laughed through a sob. She walked downstairs and into the yard. As she stepped into the light, a cardinal landed on the railing. Her mother loved cardinals, said they were messengers, reminders. The bird cocked its head, then took off in a flash of red. Maya didn't chase it. She didn't need to. She turned toward the garden, rolled up her sleeves, and bent down to water the roots. Because the work wasn't over. But the silence was gone. The story of Maya Brooks teaches us that silence, even when forced, is never the end. Truth may be buried, delayed, or denied, but with courage, persistence, and purpose, it will rise. Maya's journey reminds us that justice often begins with one voice refusing to be ignored, and that even the quietest fight can echo across generations. In honoring her mother's legacy, Maya didn't just clear a name, she lit a path for others to speak, to act, and to believe that doing what's right still matters.